friction. Constant friction.
Jump. Friction.
Welcome to Lost and Found and Rewound. I'm Chris Lost.
I'm Found Jim.
And I'm Corporal. What?
We have to talk like this. Not even going to do the accent, but you just have to be gruff.
Like Jason Statham?
Sir Rick Rewound. What do you think? Jason Statham? Think give him 20 years?
Gonna
Knighthood?
get a knighthood.
2010, he should have got one for doing that film. Well, guys, what'd you think? We should say we just completed watching the Jason Statham classic, Crank High Voltage.
Crank 2.
Crank 2 High Voltage. Initial thoughts.
I don't feel like I missed much not seeing the first Crank movie. I got pretty much had a whole handle on what happens. It did not upset me, and I was entertained. I found the visual aesthetic interesting, and it made me question. So this is a 15-year-old film already?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The question I have is, would I have thought it was visually arresting 15 years ago, or is this now nostalgia of that digital video high frame rate? I'm just curious if I would have appreciated the visual style 15 years ago.
You say high frame rate, what were they doing? They were just digital. You say digital filming. What do you think the frame rate was?
Those moments, where it gets super chattery
And clear.
kind of.
That's
really
low frame rate, right?
No, because isn't it high frame rate?
Like in the old days with film, to film slow-mo, you'd film at a high frame rate because the playback rate is slow.
Right.
But the digital thing is just super high frame rates, but it's played back at that same frame rate. So it's just really sharp and clear.
And
there's no blur, like
okay.
film blur.
I see what you're saying.
So it's that really very edgy staccato. It doesn't look real. It's just so stroboscopic kind of.
yeah, and it looks very video-ish, right?
Yeah.
I watched the first film yesterday. I was glad I watching this film today just to see the progression from the first to the second. I was dreading it a little bit because there are trigger alerts. There's homophobia. There's lots of misogyny. There's racism. Almost like a South Park thing where they kind of go after everybody, but it doesn't quite. It does all kind of feel bad. It doesn't feel good.
And so that all appeals to you, Chris. That's why you chose this movie. That's why you like it.
No, it doesn't appeal
It's
to me.
just the list of things that you look for in a film.
2009, I'd been married. My daughter was 10 years old. I mean, I was not into these things. It's not like I was 15 and being like, cool, yeah, who cares? We can all say these words.
And yet you still enjoyed the film.
I did enjoy it. I guess I even enjoyed it today. I didn't enjoy those aspects of it.
Sometimes it just kind of goes too far.
There's something very Jane's Addiction about the way they make movies, and it's interesting that Mr. Bungle, who I think is Mike Patton, is sort of the poor man's Perry Farrell, did all the music for it. But like Jane's Addictions hold nothing shocking, except they always seemed a little bit more on the writer side of being liberal. They were like pro-freak, but pro-freak in a positive way, whereas I think this film was pro-freak in a very negative way. I don't know how to describe it. It is a remnant of, I think, sort of that 90s nihilistic, very negative, misanthropic art.
I can't believe I'm saying this, but I'm going to have to watch Natural Born Killers again because I feel like that's some of the stuff I was getting out of it. Even the cinematography had that Natural Born Killers feel to me, but also I haven't seen Natural Born Killers since it came out, which is how long ago?
I was in college when that came out, so it was 1990 maybe. I was expecting this film to have been like in the late 90s, not 2009. In other ways, I was thinking this is kind of like a John Waters film where it's just a bunch of things that people do and say, and happen, and it's a culture, and it's a part of Los Angeles that doesn't get on film, and it's people from Los Angeles don't get in films, and so in that way I kind of liked it. It was cool that they were not cool. They were that they chose the cast and the backdrop of this action film to be lower income areas of Los Angeles. And
Yeah, I enjoyed it. It was fun. I felt like it was done in a the negative stuff. I mean, I didn't feel, I felt like it was done with humor.
would you say a lot of locker room talk? Is that how you might describe some of the language in the film?
Yeah, and watching those outtakes at the end, it did seem very bro-y, though. That ruined it a little bit for me. It's because it's like, oh, it's just a bunch of dudes being knuckleheads, you know? It's like,
This is the second time, and Amy Smart gets sexed up in public in the first film, and then they kind of take it to the next level in this film. And I've watched some interviews with her, and she seemed okay with that kind of stuff.
it hasn't been a traumatic.
But I was like looking in her eyes, trying to read the look in her eyes, and I'm like, I don't know if she's okay with that or not. But she seemed to really like Jason Statham. She said that when it came to the stunts, and I've heard this about him before, there was some other female co-star, I think it was when he did The Mechanic, and she said, I trust him implicitly. Like when they're doing stunts, he's like very meticulous about how the stunt's going to go down. He talks to the stunt coordinators, and if he feels like anything isn't copacetic, he calls it out and makes sure. So even though you said he wasn't a former stuntman, Rick, he definitely understands stunts. He does his own stunts, and he also takes care of his fellow actors when they're doing stunts. Amy Smart said she did all her own stunts in that film too. So I don't know how she felt about it, but there was a lot of misogyny in the film.
Sure. Yeah, there was.
Yeah, I enjoyed most of it. It was like the cartoonish, ridiculous visual aspects of it, and parts of it obviously were definitely crazy, video game inspired shoot 'em up scenes. That's all just crazy fast editing and ridiculous visuals. The guy just running around with the box and just the absurd, him chasing him and just, and getting all the electricity stuff, him just constantly getting charged up, and that's all hilarious. And
The what's in the box, a little nod to Seven, a little nod to, because you don't get to see what's in the box in Seven, although I think we all know.
the old movie, film noir.
Yeah, Mike Hammer movie. Somebody was just talking about it. I guess in the new Ethan Coen movie, there's a box too. Killer's Kiss?
No, that's another one. It's a film noir with the nuclear.
Kiss Me Deadly, right? Kiss Me Deadly is the one with the what's it in the box.
Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Lost Ark.
The briefcase in the Tarantino movie.
The obscure Tarantino movie. Pulp Fiction.
Pulp Fiction, that's what it is. Yeah, I couldn't quite remember it. It was like his second movie early on in his career.
Oh, the graphics. Yeah. So the graphics and actually realizing Scott Pilgrim, not that it was necessarily cutting edge with the graphics, but the game graphics and just kind of the graphics. Scott Pilgrim was a year later. I think the kind of stuff that they were doing with digital graphics, kind of adding it in, especially when they were describing the artificial heart, kind of old school instructional film graphics. I really enjoyed that. Little graphical moments.
Packed with stuff. In the Godzilla scene with the giant and turned into crazy.
Loved that.
Yeah, that was amazing.
Yeah. It's kind of like similar to other movies I'm trying to think of, like where it's like people are hallucinating or something. It happens in The Wolf of Wall Street, right, where he's imagining himself as being kind of suave, driving the really expensive car out, and then they go back and they show how absolutely destroyed and out of his mind he is as he wrecks the car, right? It's like his mental image of himself, and it felt like that kind of moment where it's like that hallucinatory people's perception of what's going on, and then cut to the guys who are, watching, the little, what's the kids movie with the guinea pigs where the characters are like screaming at this person, and then they cut to the human, and it's just a little tiny animal going me 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 at them. It's like I love those little moments. It felt like that. Yeah, it was good. What were you hoping for, Chris? You're hoping I'd be more upset about it? You hope I would kind of like start...
I was just saying, if Rick's going to watch a Jason Statham film, it's got to be this one. And I remember this film being insane. I know they covered on how did this get made, and I was worried about doing that again, but I was like, well, we'll cover it from a different angle, obviously. When I watched the first one yesterday, I'm like, oh, because the first one is a watered down version of what we saw today. And I was like, I can't remember why I wanted to do the second one instead of the first one. But then after seeing the second one, I was like, because it has all that stuff. Like the first one kind of plays with that stuff. And then this one, they're like, it's kind of like Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2, where Raimi got more of a budget. And so they basically made the same. In fact, that's a great way to compare the films. Raimi got to make the second film essentially a repeat of the first. He just pushed all his concepts better. He had more budget to do it. He probably were like, once you do it once, you kind of know how you would redo it and do it better. And that's essentially what happened in this film, and they just kept pushing it. And I was like, yeah, because the head in the tank. And I was like, if you guys hated it, at least you could give it some merit for being insane.
And so what I don't understand is, so this movie have some sort of like buzz about the, kind of like cult buzz?
It was a cult. The first film was a cult film.
Okay, the first one.
And then the second. So the first film on a $12 million budget did $27.8 million. And Lionsgate was interested in that and offered them the option to do the second film. They said, we won't direct it, but we'll write it. So they wrote the second film, and they were so in love with the script. They're like, there's no one who could shoot this. Like, if someone tries to shoot this film, it's not going to come out right.
Yeah.
They all figured, well, we can do all our gags and we can do them better than we did in the first film. So they got a $20 million budget, so $8 million more, and they made $34.5 million. So $14 million profit versus, $15, $16 million profit. Some profit out of these films. They weren't that highly publicized, so I think they saved money. They were considered, I don't know if they were considered indie films, but I don't remember them being heavily pushed.
Right.
Crank won 62% by critics, 71% by audiences, so it was sort of a bit of a cult hit. And then Crank High Voltage, 63% by critics, so 1% more, but 49% by audiences. Audiences did not like the second film as much as the first one. I think this is the best Neville, Dean, and Taylor film ever made. I've only seen pieces of the ones that follow, but they all flopped. They did like Gamer, and they did the second Ghost Rider film.
So Gamer, is that the first-person shooter movie?
I think you're thinking of Hardcore Henry.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
which is an interesting film, too.
But Gamer is something else.
Yeah, the films they made afterwards were more fantastical, and you'd be like, boy, they'll do great with that. And I don't think they do great with that. I think what they do best is take a heightened reality as opposed to a fantastic environment, turn it into a film.
Gerard Butler is in Gamer, so they're just using their English action dudes. Got it.
And Gerard Butler has a reputation for signing on for crazy shit. I don't know if you've all seen the film Plane.
No.
I loved Plane. It was a blast.
Are you talking about a Gerard Butler films?
Yep.
I saw the one with was it an asteroid? And then I saw one of the ones with Morgan Freeman as the president, like on an airplane.
Oh, yeah.
Like there are multiple
Something Is
ones.
Fallen.
Yeah, there are multiple fallen ones, right? And yeah. Yeah, I know who Gerard Butler is.
Yeah, you're big on his films. The film took 31 days to shoot, which is unbelievable. Like, they shot it in a month. That seems like a very fast shoot. I mean, it was only 97 minutes or something.
A lot of just L.A. street scenes, so I guess I could see how they could do it. It's still, it's amazing. But
a lot of effects and makeup. And
and lots, the stunt, how many stunt people were involved, too. The list
That's
of
true,
people.
yeah.
But it's obviously all L.A. They were just going out and...
Yeah, there were a couple of those moments, like at the beginning where they're at the House of Ill Repute, and then, in the background, it did just look like cars driving by in L.A. It felt almost like they were stealing shots, kind of like, we'll just set up in this house and shoot some stuff out on the street.
The cars were great in this film. There was that gremlin. There was the car he was driving that he drove into the cement barrier. That was a wild scene. And then Bai Ling gets hit by one of those old squared off Volvos. A weird collection of... We were talking before we started recording because Rick hadn't hit the button fast enough about having a shitty car collection like Jay Leno, having like a huge car garage full of Renaults and Gremlins and Volvos. I wonder if the cars they chose were just random or if this was sort of their tribute to kind of old trashy cars that people would drive if they didn't have a lot of money.
Dead on Arrival, DOA. Have you ever seen that movie? And they remade it with
Dennis Quaid.
Yeah, in the 80s. Edward, now I can't remember who's in the original DOA. I was talking to our mother about it. I remembered that she had seen DOA when she was a kid, and it had a profound effect on her because it's a movie about a guy who's feeling sick, and he goes to the doctor's office, and the doctor tells him he's been poisoned, and he has one day to live. And so the whole movie is him trying to go back in time, trace his steps and try to figure out who's murdering him. It's a murder mystery, but the person is still alive and they haven't died yet. It's got that death clock thing but this movie is a little different because he has to keep jumping his artificial heart.
And the plot of Crank is more like Dead on Arrival. So he wakes up and he's been poisoned by this Chinese poison. If he can't keep his adrenaline up, it will take him over and kill him. So he gets in fights with people, and he picks fights that he's intentionally going to lose and gets the shit kicked out of him, and he has sex with his girlfriend. He does sort of a series of things to keep the adrenaline flowing.
It's kind of like Speed meets DOA.
Right.
Yeah, got it. That's how they pitched it, I'm sure. Falling out of a plane. So we've got a theme. We had a little bit of that in Siesta.
And that's how the first film ends, is he is going to kill the last, or what he thinks is the last of the two brothers that are after him. He jumps out of the helicopter with him, beats the shit out of him in the air, and then he hits a car and lands in the street and lives, and the other guy, I guess his head lived.
Whereas in Siesta, of course.
Right. So really the question
dies.
is, was this all a dream?
Did he actually die in Italy? Was he stabbed? Yeah, at some point he's stabbed.
By
Right?
Isabella Rossellini?
That would have been amazing if she had shown up in the film. There were some people. Yeah, we had David Carradine made an appearance. Looking at his IMDb, it seems like he apparently was in movies for about 10 or 15 years after he died. But
Right.
this was the year of his death.
Oh, it was. He died in 2009.
2009. So that, I felt a little sad.
David Carradine took the role of Kung Fu from Bruce Lee, right? So he was a Western guy
Yeah.
who took a role from an Asian actor, and then they had David Carradine in this film in an Asian role.
Yeah.
You wonder if it's a reference or if it's just, we loved Kung Fu, let's just...
Gotta be a reference, I think, somehow. Deep.
That would be truly sad if they hired David Carradine and they were like, and he said, "Well, I was in Kung Fu," and they go, "What? Huh? We're hiring you because of Bound for Glory. We really loved that Woody Guthrie movie you were in."
I never watched Kung Fu. Was he playing an Asian character in Kung Fu?
Yeah.
Oh, he was. I thought he was a Western guy.
I'm a little fuzzy on his. Yeah,
he's weird eye. Well, it was confusing because he was Western. He was a Western guy in the show when he's young, like the opening credits, I think. But then later on in the show, he's older, and everyone thinks he's Asian or racist to him a lot of times. I think but I swear he has makeup, like his eyes are kind of...
Yeah, I feel like...
It's like he's just old, so he's all withered. It's strange, because the opening credits, he's just a white dude getting training in this monastery. He's got his head shaved, but he's not. He's just a young David Carradine. It's confusing. I was always confused about that show. Yeah, what exactly happened? He changed, or is he older? They made him look like he's Asian.
So it sounds like James Coburn was also considered for the role.
Of course.
Yeah. So that connects back to season 3, season 5 of our show?
Season 1.
Season
First
1.
season,
Okay,
yeah.
sorry. Thank you for clarifying.
For the role in Kung Fu or for the role in Crank?
Kung Fu, yeah. No.
Oh,
James Coburn. Although he might have still been alive in 2009, right? That was right about the end. What was that movie that he was in right at the end? Did he get an Academy Award for that?
Prime Cut.
Prime Cut. Oh.
Keep on Loving You was used several times in this film. In the previous film, they used Turn Me Loose by Loverboy. And it was really well done.
Yeah.
Amazing fight scene to that bass line that I actually thought was Styx when I was originally hearing it, because there's a great bass line on Too Much Time on My Hands. And I was like, is this another Styx song from that album? And it actually turned out to be Loverboy. I didn't
What
realize.
album is that, Chris? What is Too Much Time on My Hands on?
I don't know. It's not Paradise Theater.
It's definitely not Paradise Theater.
It would be the album after Paradise Theater, I'd imagine.
What? No.
What do you mean?
You mean on Mr. Roboto? Is Too Much Time on My Hands on Mr. Roboto?
No, I don't. I think there's got to be an album between Paradise Theater and Mr. Roboto.
I don't think so, man.
Let's solve this problem.
It's either on Pieces of Eight or Grand Illusion, I think.
It's that old, huh?
Those are all. Oh, geez, you're right, man. Too Much Time on My Hands is Paradise Theater. Holy cow.
Oh, it's on Paradise Theater.
Yeah.
Well, I said it was after Paradise Theater.
Yeah, I was wrong too, though.
Oh, no, maybe my initial guess was Paradise Theater. Well, I'll just edit this
Edit
so
it
it
to
makes
make
me
you
sound
sound
right.
smart.
Yeah.
Smart about sticks. If you really want to be that knowledgeable about sticks.
I did not put anything in here about David Carradine. This all just came up.
Like it heard you talking.
Yeah. Huh. David Carradine ethnicity. What the fuck? Oh, sorry, your kid's around. That's no good. Oh, no, I did look up David Carradine. Sorry, I was looking up David Carradine earlier. I forgot my previous...
Who's been using my phone? Who was looking up David Carradine on my phone?
Oh, my God.
Someone. I could see you in the hotel. It's like, someone has left something in my room. Somebody broke into my room and was searching David Carradine on my phone.
Well, I should do a synopsis. I should have written one, but I didn't write one. The synopsis of this film is that Chev Chelios, as we remember from the first film, Crank, was falling out of a helicopter fighting his enemy, kicks him in the groin, throws him to the ground. Chev hits a car and bounces onto the pavement. He's picked up by a bunch of gentlemen with a shovel, put in a car, and they take him back to cut out his heart and replace it with a replacement heart that's battery operated. It needs to stay electrically charged. And so for the rest of the film, he's trying to figure out who was trying to steal his heart and who's been hunting him all day. And he finds both through people who are assisting him, the brother of his assistant in the first film, who's avenging his previous assistant's death, and Doc, of course, played by Dwight Yoakam, reprising his role as Chev Chelios' loving doctor who loves him. And then at the end of the film, Chev Chelios gets his heart back and gets vengeance on the people who are hunting him. And he kicks the guy's head into a pool and then kills his brother and drowns him next to him. Spoiler alert.
So lots of cameos. So we had both the singer from Linkin Park and the singer from Tool appeared in the film. I think they're both together. I'm not sure because I don't follow those bands. And
As a gay couple putting a shock collar on their dog.
Right. I think that, yeah. So I believe that. And then you got your Mike Patton from not just Mr. Bungle. I noticed that you just say he's from Mr. Bungle.
That's the worst thing he's done.
Right. So you just...
So I just kind of went to that.
Okay.
I mean, Mr. Bungle kind of sums up his style of music. Mm-hmm. He kind of took Faith No More and bungled it up.
Mr. Bungled it.
Right.
And then...
exactly. Sorry, Mike. I know he's a listener. So.
Oh, yeah. And then another singer, Ginger Spice from the Spice Girls, playing the mother of Jason Statham's...
she plays Chev Chelios' mother.
Chev Chelios, yes,
How
of
could
course.
you forget the name Chev Chelios?
Chev Chelios.
The greatest name in screenwriting history. Ron Jeremy was in the film with several other porn stars that I didn't recognize. But I suspect they are porn stars.
Oh, yeah, and Dwight Yoakam's a singer, too. So it's just all... It's a lead singer movie. I think, maybe, more than a guitarist movie. Right? I think that sums it all. It's a good movie, but it's all lead singers.
What would be a guitarist movie? Point Break, where Flea is in the film.
That's a bass player.
Is Flea in a bass guitar? They call it a bass guitar. What is Flea in Point Break? Or is Anthony Kiedis in Point Break? Or are they both in Point Break? Jim?
I've not seen that. I don't know.
Flea is in Suburbia.
And the Big Lebowski.
Oh, he's in the Big Lebowski, yeah. And Amy Mann is in the Big Lebowski.
Oh.
Her toe. Amy Mann's the nihilist who sacrificed her toe.
The German.
Oh.
Yeah.
Flea is in Back to the Future 2.
Who's in Repo Man? Flea's not in Repo Man. The guitar player from he was Mike Watt's guitar player. That one time we played with Mike Watt. He was the sidekick in Repo Man. Yeah, but I don't think Flea's in Repo Man. I get Repo Man and Suburbia mixed up. Flea's in Suburbia.
Flea's in a lot of Red Hot Chili Peppers music videos. I see that. That's really hurting my search. He's in Baby Driver. I don't remember that.
What's Dwight Yoakam doing? Is he doing music again?
I actually saw Dwight Yoakam play. A friend of mine managed a restaurant in Kansas City that was in the Power and Light District. And in the middle of the Power and Light District, they have this big open area with a stage at the end of it. And Dwight Yoakam was going to play on the stage. So my friend said, I reserved you a table right on the patio, 4 seats for the Dwight Yoakam concert. And it was great. It was amazing. He's in Sling Blade. He's great in Sling Blade. He's really good in something else recently too, and I can't remember what.
Yeah, I do feel like I saw him more recently, but he's still making records too, though?
I'd imagine. I'm not a big. I loved him live. I wouldn't necessarily buy a bunch of Dwight Yoakam records, but that's because
nobody buys records anymore.
Well, and I have limited musical tastes.
He was in Panic Room, but that was over 20 years ago.
Oh, that's what it was.
Yeah.
Panic Room. Yeah,
20 years ago, but he was in Panic Room. He was good,
and he was really good in
Panic Room.
He held his own with Forrest Whitaker.
That's right.
Really nicely done. Let's see. Point Break. Point. Oh, it's no. So I don't think Flea was in Point Break. Must have just been Anthony Kiedis. Oh well. What are you gonna do? Oh, back on David Carradine again. Who's been searching my phone? Wait, this is random. Hot Seat. The $6 Million Man was built in 1973. How many millions would it cost to build him in 2024? Rick.
Inflation? This is an inflation question? Mm-hmm. In 2024. So how many years is that?
80, 90, 40?
I'm going to say 50 million.
Close. Jim?
I'll say 40.
Use your chiz and bop, Jim.
Closer. 43.
Wow.
Kansas City. Food-wise, once only known as a barbecue town. But thanks to the Taco the Town podcast, everything has changed. Kansas City has rightfully taken its place as a taco paradise, smack dab in the middle of the USA, and all of these tacos belong to us on the Taco the Town podcast. My name is W. David Keith, certified tacoholic, and I live a very taco-centric lifestyle. On the Taco the Town podcast, we're tasting every taco in the town. We shine a light on all of the taco-rific tacos Kansas City has to offer, unearthing great taco memories, checking the latest stories in taco news, and interviewing actors, reporters, chefs, politicians, and musicians about their love for tacos. If you love tacos like I do, you're gonna love Taco the Town. Available wherever you get your taco podcasts. A proud member of the Lotus Pod Podcasting Network.
Lost and found and rewound.
Let's get to it. Rick, should this film be lost?
It does feel like the kind of movie that we've been talking about a lot on this show. I feel a little disappointed that I hadn't heard about it before because I feel like maybe I missed the boat on this one.
You'd never heard of this film?
I've never heard of this film.
Really?
Really?
It is a bit of a culty film, though.
And I guess it's because, like you were saying, having kids and stuff, and so this would have been a period of time where I'm not watching culty cinema like that.
And it came too late.
Yeah.
The stuff it tries to pull off, all the negative elements of the film, are happening in 2009, and we're kind of moving past that. Again, I think it was 1995 or like 1990 when you said Natural Born Killers.
Yeah.
I think it would have played better. But I mean, we certainly didn't get into cancel culture yet. We weren't as culturally sensitive yet, but we were moving in that direction.
It was a time of hope, 2009.
That's true. It absolutely was.
You know, I don't think there was a place for a movie like this in 2009.
This was a cynical, misanthropic, nihilistic film.
This is more of a 2016 film.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe.
2017.
Yeah, so sorry I cut you off. You'd never seen this film before. This is like, you were saying this is like the films we've been covering. How so?
I wouldn't say they're well-known or mainstream, but they have something. It's better than what I thought it would be and what its description of and even what its Rotten Tomatoes is. I think it is evidence of an interesting trash aesthetic director's vision, and it's unfortunate that these guys didn't move on to something. Like, if you think of the Daniels or something, to me, this feels like a springboard to an interesting career. And it sounds like that's not what happened, is they kind of didn't exploit their vision, continue it, and expand it. They couldn't break out of the weird B-movie world they were in.
I did have that moment where like, oh, is this like a John Waters? I said this before, like a John Waters movie. And my wife was watching clips from the Hairspray musical movie, because of course Hairspray was a movie, then it became a musical, then it became a movie of the musical. And Amanda Bynes was in it, and she was great in it. We were, our family's fans of Amanda Bynes because my brother-in-law used to work with her, and she was very kind to my daughter, and she just kind of fell off the deep end, I think, due to mental health issues, and it's just unfortunate how that whole story got painted. But we were watching that movie, admiring Amanda in it, and then I was just like, this is really well done. This is like, John Waters went from these, people with shit-stained underwear getting raped in a garbage dump to this beautifully executed film with all these, gorgeous actors singing and dancing. And
did John Waters direct the musical version?
I don't know. That's what I have to go back and look. But at least his work.
Yeah. Oh no. Yeah.
I mean, because Hairspray was, it was originally created back when he wasn't too far away from those. And Divine was in the original Hairspray.
It was a turning point. Although was Crybaby before Hairspray?
Crybaby was after
Hairspray. Okay. Hairspray. Yeah. So it definitely. Yeah, and then Serial Mom is after both of those, right? He kind of went back with Serial Mom. Yeah, yeah, definitely. Hairspray was a pretty drastic change, I remember.
But a progression. So he sort of got attention for doing these really. It's as if Andy Warhol's films never went anywhere either. They were all kind of bad and shocking or gross, and it's not like he sort of progressed into being a more polished storyteller or filmmaker. Waters did. And these guys, I think, probably were influenced by John Waters' movies, I'd imagine, but just couldn't turn the corner. Kind of, again, the same thing I was saying about Eli Roth.
Yeah.
Is that he's kind of mired in the kitsch of horror. Clearly, as a student of the genre, could probably make an amazing horror film if he just kind of put his mind to writing the better elements of horror films.
We talked, 10 seasons ago about Ari Aster. And that's an example of someone who's kind of, for some reason, you can do original stories in horror, right, as opposed to just garbage retreads. It's a pathway for interesting directors to establish themselves and then move beyond that and start becoming I don't want to say mainstream, but just I'm wondering, is action maybe is not a pathway for that? So this is more of an action movie, right?
Right.
And maybe that's just, it's not as easy of a pathway then to kind of move, if you make a higher level action film or something that has a spark of creativity in it or is a little different or has a slightly new vision, can you leverage that into expanding it out then into non-genre specific filmmaking? But Ari Aster, right? He's really done 2 or 3 horror movies and then did a weird movie, and then we'll see what happens from there.
This season we'll have to do Beau is Afraid. We'll have to watch him. You've seen it, right? I haven't seen it yet.
Robert Eggers, though, to me is also somebody who's done that horror. So he did The Witch, and then
Witch was great.
Jumped to what was the next one, and then I can't remember. And then the Viking movie. But then The Lighthouse, right? He did The Lighthouse.
Right.
He's going to do Nosferatu, right? Is he the one doing Nosferatu, or is that Ari Aster?
I don't know.
Anyways, that pathway is what I'm thinking about. You start out, actually pull something off in the horror genre that's exceptional, and then you leverage that into different films. And maybe action is not a good pathway for that. Really, now I'm thinking about Paul Verhoeven. Paul Verhoeven, he went from like arty films, right? And then went to RoboCop, Total Recall, Starship Troopers, but then it all kind of falls apart.
Is it that horror has both a male and a female audience, and that action is probably more a majority of a male audience?
Maybe. Is that true? So women like horror?
I think so. Okay. I think it's like a good date film is a horror film. Because I think, it is, because horror stimulates you in the same way as titillation. And actually horror films have titillation usually in them.
Yeah.
Whereas an action film is just a bunch of testosterone going off. And I'm not sure it's as appealing to women. But maybe I'm being misogynist now. that I'm saying.
And I'm just remembering Total Recall. So remembering going with my wife to see Total Recall. Maybe she wasn't my wife yet. Action film, but also Philip K. Dick based film. But there is the moment where Paul Verhoeven film where Arnold shoots
Sharon Stone.
Sharon Stone.
And Sarah Stone.
And I remember, consider this a divorce, and I remember a young man, like maybe 12 or 13, when he shot her in the head, he literally jumped up and did like a double fist pump and went,
Ooh.
yeah! And then that was the beginning of my worry about Paul Verhoeven, like not trusting him.
Or he did the film about the woman who was raped and then continued to put herself in position to continue to be raped.
I don't remember that.
Elle, I think is the name of that movie.
I have a problem with Starship Troopers, and people go, oh, Starship Troopers is the best. You know, they say, you don't understand that Starship Troopers is a commentary of blah, 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 blah. It's like if I say Starship Troopers, when I watch Starship Troopers, I understand, you know, you listen to the commentary track and he talks about growing up in the Netherlands and seeing people in his community shot to death by Nazis, you know, lying in the street. But watching the film, and you actually watch the film, it's that switch from kind of the same thing with Showgirls, which I never saw, but it's like, is this eroticism or pornography? Is this actual commentary on fascism, or did you just make a perfectly fascist film? And it's not from a position of ignorance. It's in a conservative position. It's from a position of not being absolutely sure whether or not Paul Verhoeven is intentionally, I'm going to show you terrible things in a sadistic, anti-human way, as opposed to I'm showing you these terrible things, or I'm making a perfect fascist document. It's meant to be a commentary on fascism. If you truly watch Starship Troopers without history of Paul Verhoeven and that narrative of it being a commentary, it's just a fascist document, and it doesn't achieve the commentary it wants. And it's all based on that moment when they consider this a divorce, Sharon Stone being shot in the head and watching a 14-year-old boy pump his fists in victory and joy for that happening, and realizing, okay, it almost doesn't matter, but I'm actually not 100% sure whether or not this person is a humanist.
No, I think he's a hilarious satirist, but I also think that there's definitely misogyny in all of his movies. Yeah. I think he's also a sadist and a nihilist.
Yeah, sadist. So there's sadism. So that's the problem.
He is a sadist.
Yeah.
He's clearly, and he's been traumatized, and that's part of his films is he's putting that on screen too.
Yeah. So it's a trauma response.
So should this film be lost was the question.
Well, no.
Jim?
I enjoyed it more than I thought I would, or I don't know what I thought I would, but the negative, the really dark, not dark, but just, I like the humor, I guess. And then it's like, I guess it's being, I don't know, like a...
The inexplicable Lauren Holly scene where she's the therapist saying all these things about the guy getting all these weird sexual comments, and the guy gets his head blown off.
Yeah, I saw that coming a mile away. But
that's the quintessential bad scene of this film where things don't need to exist.
The collateral damage, all the innocent, which it happens all the time in these movies. You know, it's just innocent bystanders getting wiped out.
The gardener.
Yeah. There wasn't as much of that.
The gardener. Oh, thanks for reminding me. This film should be lost. I didn't like the gardener getting shot. That's, to me, is wrong, because that's just like a person working,
doing his job. He's ignoring the huge gun battle that's going on behind him. He's got his back.
Well, that's the sadism aspect, right?
Yeah,
so Verhoeven would say, well, when I grew up, gardeners got shot. No, but like bullets straight and hit a guy is talking to his therapist. Like, that's how life is, and I'm going to show it that way.
Yeah.
It's like, well, you're choosing to show it that way, and that's a very sadistic way to go about it.
But this wasn't, this is all, it's comedy. It's done, it's a dark kind of just like.
Well, and they're saying, like, what about the gardener when a shootout like this happens? Like, what happens? Why did the gardener get away? Like, he shouldn't. Right. He's right in the middle of the gun battle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's definitely intended as humor, like, haha, really cold, reveling in that kind of stuff. But, which, I come to expect that, but it wasn't as bad as I thought it would. But I enjoyed the humor of this movie. It's so absurd, it's all cartoonish violence and gets to be too much sometimes, but it was definitely on a whole nother level of irony and humor. It had tons of that ridiculous, cartoonish comic book stuff. So that was great.
You were talking about
John Waters?
John Waters. Yeah, you're talking about John Waters. And then I'm thinking about Death Race 2000, for instance, right? And so all of those kind of midnight movies, B movies, that thing. And it definitely keys into that. Thinking about Death Race 2000, which, am I right, was directed by Paul Bartel, who also directed Rock and Roll High School. Did he direct Rock and Roll High School? And then Eating Raoul,
yeah.
I know, right? Yeah. I think Paul Bartel directed all of those. And I think of him not quite like John
Waters.
Jeez, wow.
You know, I have a Barry Manilow CD, even now, signed by John Waters in a silver paint pen. I brought it up to him, and he looked at it, and he's like, "What is this?" I said, "It's a Barry Manilow CD." And he's like, "What do you want me to do with it?" I'm like, "I want you to sign it with the silver paint pen." And he looked at me, and he was like, "Okay." And he signed it. I think he was like, "What's this guy's motive?" And it's like, my motive is I'm going to stick this in my house for the rest of my life. And I think he was like, "Yeah, is this guy going to sell it, or should this film be found? Would either of you ever recommend it to anybody, and if so, who?" Jim.
Hey, maybe some close friends. I'm trying to think who would enjoy it.
The type of people who are into like bar sports, maybe?
Right, exactly.
Yeah, the bar sports crowd, Jim?
Bar sports crowd. Oh, sorry. I was looking up Paul Bartel, who directed not only Death Race 2000, but Cannonball, which I remember. Oh, no, I'm thinking of the Gumball Run. Sorry.
Cannonball. He was in a Cannonball Run, right?
Yeah.
I feel like he's in some movie like that.
I don't know.
Oh, no.
Well, he's in Death Race
2000.
They're
That's
him
probably
and-
what it is, yeah.
And what's her name? They're in a car together.
Yeah.
What's her name? Forgotten her name.
Mary Warnoff.
Mary Warnoff.
Dancer for the Exploding Plastic Inevitable.
If you say so.
The dancers that performed with the Velvet Underground.
Oh. Who would you recommend it to, Rick? A student?
Yeah, I would recommend it to a film student that I know that I'm related to. I think it's interesting to me, reading a little bit about the directors, how they...
You would recommend it to your son?
Yeah, my older son who's in film school. I'm interested in what low-budget independent filmmaking is like in the digital era. Narratively speaking, I'm not as interested in that, but the fact that they were doing things... And you made the Evil Dead comparison, right? So talking about the shaky cam, that's the famous... effect where, running up to the cabin, and how they did that. They couldn't afford a steady cam, so they bolted the camera to a 2x4 and ran through the woods towards the cabin for Evil Dead. And then the Coen brothers, who one of them was they both were the editors on Evil Dead.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So Sam Raimi helped them getting Blood Simple made too, and the Coen brothers used the shaky cam in Blood Simple. There's the exact same shot running up to the house.
Awesome.
In Blood Simple. Hearing about these directors, the Crank directors, filming with digital cameras, using rollerblades, trying to find the scenes. So there's early on with the car, thinking about stunts and thinking about getting those shots where you're riding up next to a car and then kind of zooming in and like going into the car, getting a shot of the driver. That's probably one of the rollerblade shots where he's just rolling on rollerblades next to the car and getting this insane shot. Those kind of things. And then, like you said, 30 days shooting and packing all that in, just the logistics and being able to film something like that. To me, it's interesting as a kind of artifact of digital filmmaking, the ease and how you can do a lot more with it. And also the artifacts of that digital era. So a lot of that is disappearing as digital.
Digital now looks like film.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
frame rate and the richness and the richness of the
Processing,
blacks.
yeah.
And should this film be rewound? Would you watch it again, Jim?
Yeah, probably. Maybe.
With somebody?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, definitely the Godzilla scene.
Finding that on YouTube.
Yeah.
It is a British film. We made that. We were making that point earlier. You are
Right.
an Anglophile, and there's a British man in the film.
A couple.
And Cockney rhyming slang, He uses a couple, at least 2 or 3. Strawberry tart, calls his heart. And then there was one other one.
There's Pumper.
Yeah, but it was the rhyming slang thing.
Yeah, what would a rhyming slang for pumper be? Sweater? Jumper? Oh no, strawberry tart.
It's-
the rhyme.
Yeah, it's completely unrelated. It's like
Yeah,
you
I
just
thought
rhymes
there was
the
an
last.
extra step with
Yeah.
Cockney.
So strawberry tart and tart rhymes with heart, and that's why.
I always thought there was one extra layer with the
Yeah.
rhyming, where it was
Yeah.
like you do the rhyme with the thing.
It's always confused to me.
Yeah.
What it is exactly. It usually seems completely unrelated. It's just a rhyme. Yeah.
We do have a British audience, so maybe the British audience members could help us out with that. I don't think I'll ever watch either of these films ever again. I wanted to watch them again. I know I've watched them once before, And I wanted to watch them again because I remember there being something special about them. One was sort of the gimmick of I'm poisoned and I have to do this to keep myself alive and I have to figure out the end of this thing. The first film was a little darker. It's a little like they only use it once in Crank 2, the cell phone ring that like rings it like doo-doo, 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 doo-doo. It's like makes the sound of the phone kind of like running out of batteries as it's ringing. And it always does that in the first film, and that sound effect reminds you that he only has so much time before he runs out of energy, and so he's constantly got to be juicing himself with energy. So there's one nod to it. But this film, I remember just like they just went for it. I'm like they took their. It was just like it was Evil Dead 2. They took their concept and took it to the next level. And I always wanted to watch it again. I never wanted to watch it alone because I thought it's not a film you should sit and watch alone because that says something about you. But if you're watching it with friends and like, am I right? This is crazy, right? Like what? But it's kind of funny, you know. Like it makes a little more sense.
It does feel like that type of film.
It's like The Gray. I compared it to Liam Neeson films, where his films are a little more legit, or they have, you know, less of a ridiculous plot. But it is ridiculous that this 65-year-old man is going to, you know, kill 60 Chechens in order to get to his sex-trafficked daughter.
I've watched The Gray by myself. I'll watch that movie by myself.
It is a great film, but I think it was great with a crowd. We watched it with a crowd. We watched although I did watch all those. Well, I don't know if Ice Road, was he in Ice Road?
Yeah.
I watched that by myself, and then I watched the one, I think it was like a Swedish version and an American version.
Yeah. I've watched both films.
We've talked about them previously on this podcast.
So you can just find my voice from 4 years ago.
Yeah, and I'll just punch it in.
Episode 5 or season 5, and then just punch in.
It's about the guy who like shovels the road to a remote cold town.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, I want to say Murder by Numbers, but that's not it. It's.
Oh, there is a number aspect to one of the films. They do a countdown.
Yeah, I prefer the original. So for a little while, right, those European directors, they would make these films, and then they'd have them remake them. The guy who did the original of that film then did the Liam Neeson American version.
I haven't watched the American version of Funny Games, but I have
Funny
seen
Games,
the other one.
Yeah, so where they did that too. Yeah, same director. Yeah, weird.
Those films are a little too sadistic for me. There's some sort of pleasure that's being taken in the cruelty of it that bothers me. All right, gents, we did it. Pizza movie. We kept the smut away from your mom. My promise to the two of you is I'll get back on track. I've my two picks this year don't necessarily. Well, they follow the formula of films that are lesser known but have redeeming qualities.
Yeah, I mean, and honestly, I would never have chosen to watch this film. I think I got something out of it.
Yeah, you did. Yeah. We got a podcast out. We got content out of it.
All right.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Lost and Found and Rewound is fully funded by Lost and Found and Rewound Foundation funds. Lost and Found and Rewound does not use crowdfunding because our listeners have better things to do with their funding. There's no need to post reviews of Lost and Found and Rewound because our listeners have more valuable things to do with their time. In all sincerity, thank you for listening to the show. We truly appreciate it.
Lotus Pod.